Hi, this is Randy Randall of No Age and host of the podcast Hyphenate with Randy Randall. I want to welcome our newest sponsor of the show, DistroKid. DistroKid helps musicians get their music on all the major streaming platforms, and artists keep 100% of their royalties. Hyphenate listeners get 30% off at distrokid.com/VIP/hyphenate. Again, that's distrokid.com/VIP/HYPHENATE. Go get your music streaming everywhere now.
In general, like anyone who's posting stuff about wellness or mindfulness or pictures of them under a waterfall or pictures of their plants, I'm like, oh, this person has a lot of baggage.
What's happening? Thank you so much for tuning into Hyphenate with me, Randy Randall. On today's show, I have the one and only Mr. Danny Perez. He is a noise artist, experimental filmmaker, jack of all trades, real Renaissance man, a man made for the time. I feel like he's the dude in The Big Lebowski. You know, every time comes a man, not just any man, but the man for the time. I think that is Danny Perez. I hope everybody had a good 4th of July. Last week, I'll let you in on a little secret. I record these ahead of time, so 4th of July is actually happening very soon for me. But for everybody listening, it was last week, so I hope nobody blew their fingers off. I never knew anybody that blew their fingers off. As a kid, there was a lot more explosives around than I see now. I don't see as many. That was always a big excitement on tour. If you got into a state or a county or a city or an area where they would sell fireworks on the side of the road, and you'd buy something and you'd blow a few things up and then just be sketchy. You're like, okay, this I don't need to carry around explosives in the van for much longer. You'd light up a couple firecrackers after a show or something, or try to blow something up or shoot bottle rockets at each other. But it always seemed way sketchier than I was comfortable with. But yeah, I don't know. Southern California, I think there's a shit ton of fireworks that go on all the way around us. I don't get down. I don't think. Not at this point in my life. Not at this age. I'll watch a thing. I'll watch a firework, but I have no desire to launch off like large mortar shells into the sky and see them explode. I did listen to a cool podcast though, the Disney Dish with Len Testa and Jim Hill, and they had a whole thing about the Disneyland fireworks and the whole history of the Disneyland fireworks. I thought that was entertaining. I'll go that far as to be excited about Disneyland fireworks. That being said, I hope everybody had a good, safe 4th of July for those who celebrate it in the States. And it's wild, man. It's a wild time, but I appreciate everybody being here, listening to the show. We got what do we got? We got DistroKid hanging in as a sponsor, doing great, kicking butt. I hope you've used DistroKid for all of your online streaming needs. They are a sweet company. They have a good deal going there. VIP/hyphenate. You get 20% off your first year, I think, for uploading your music straight to all the digital streaming platforms, the DSPs. Get your music heard by everybody, or at least have the opportunity. It's up there. You can send everybody in the world a link to it. Maybe they'd hear it. It's so hard when you think about those big streaming things. I know there's so much to listen to on there, but I'm constantly amazed at the music my kids find. I think there's a lot to do with like the thumbnail, the artwork. If it's a weird meme face or something, they get very excited about that. And then whatever the music is, it could be just god awful, like weird kids tracks or farting or pooping things. But if it has the poop emoji on it, I think you got like 10,000 streams just right there. I don't know what that equals out, like maybe like 8 cents or something. But definitely seems to be the way to go. If anybody's out there using DistroKid to get their music up online, please let me know if you use a poop emoji in your thumbnail artwork. Just throwing it out there, just from one dad to another. If you ever want to get more streams, you could do an experiment. List the same song with 2 different artworks, one featuring the poop emoji, and it may just may just blow up and go viral. Just throwing it out there. I also want to shout out Audioscape Engineering. They are a super cool company that makes hardware that I use for recording this podcast. I have the Audioscape, what do they call this? The VCA series, a G stereo compressor. It's like a SSLG bus style rack compressor. It's great at the end of the line of the chain to really bring all your mixes together with a great, kind of glue sort of sound. It's from a classic broadcast desk, and they would use that a lot to make sure everything was summed and balanced correctly. So Audioscape Engineering, awesome. Audio-scape. Go check them out if you have a recording studio, if you're working on recordings and you want your recordings to sound good. I think they're pretty sweet. And that's it. I will be back on Monday with Aaron Farley. Hope you have a great weekend. And now here it is, my interview with the one and only Danny Perez. Mr. Danny Perez, thank you so much for joining me here.
Hello, Randy.
What's happening?
How's it going?
Good. We were just talking normally, and now I have to put on my podcaster voice. Hello. Hi. How are you doing?
I actually hate the sound of my voice, so this will be challenging. I was going to maybe bring a pedal. Cause can we just pitch shift it? Because I sound like a fucking idiot. But that's a pretty good level. It's robust.
Well, you're the one on the bottom. I don't think yours is robust at all. Hold on.
Oh, yeah. It's pretty mellow.
Let me pull it into your face.
Hello.
Is that getting something?
Yeah.
Why are you so
That's pretty
quiet?
good.
All right. Yeah, I can work with that. That works. Cool. Sound checking on the air. So, Danny, you
Randy.
are a film director, visual artist maker, and now a musical artist maker.
Yes.
Is that the correct terminology there?
Yeah, I would say so. I think I'm finally comfortable in my mid-40s with just saying artist. Cause,
how beautiful is that? That's an easy one to say.
Yeah, I'm an artist because I just do lots of things, and I don't actually think that's like a badge of honor because our society and our world treats artists like shit.
Yes.
And especially here in Los Angeles, you have a lot of quote-unquote creatives trying to pass themselves off as artists, and I kind of look at them as why are you doing that? That's not a good thing. We get shit on all the time and undervalued. It's not I almost say it yeah, I'm a diabetic. Yeah, I'm an artist. But yeah, so in the spirit of not wanting to make money, I started doing experimental music in my 40s as well. After years of working with a lot of our friends.
Oh my God, I know, right? Well, I was just bringing up the idea that, when I was talking with LG from Thumb and the Sleaze, and I feel like I have to come up with this noise artist anonymous sort of thing. I think we both qualify for those kinds of things of wanting to spend more time and money and the thing to play to know people and
It is pretty daunting
galleries.
when you look at your pedal board or your Pelican case and you realize holy shit, this is thousands of dollars. And I have a rule now that I'm trying to not get anything for more than $500. That's my limit. So it's definitely keeping me in check. Although I would like a new synth, and it's pretty hard to get a poly synth for under that. But yeah.
I know. Well, yeah. I mean, I've always felt like guitar pedals were fun. If under $100 is an easy kind of range. You know what I mean? As an adult.
Yeah.
I mean, when I was younger, that would
No, certainly.
break me. I know that inflation and whatnot being what it is. $100 can be a dinner for two. Or it could be a pedal.
Yeah.
So if you can kind of swing that kind of thing living in 2024, but then again, now pedals are $300. And a $300 pedal.
A 200 is now the new norm for that's a $200 thing. You're gosh, man. But yeah, I like a lot of those electro harmonics pedals. Those are fun, and a lot of those mono synth pedals. If you just play them open, it causes all kinds of crazy decay and weird effects in the delay. But yeah, I started this project DPSD. I'm calling it during 2020 or during COVID rather, because everything kind of seemed a little weird. Yeah,
and everything's shut down. There's no point in being shy about anything anymore.
No, and I was straight up worried that I was never gonna get to do a show again or make visuals for a show again, and I just had a little basement studio, so and I had the same guitar I had from when I was 14, a Fender Strat Mexicaster, and I had a bunch of pedals and a synth, and yeah, it's been really fun. Probably spending more time on it than I should, but it is there's nothing like just kind of getting lost in some loops and playing at the end of the day.
Where do you come from, and how did you get started in all things like this? Where did the artistic journey begin?
I grew up in the DC area, and I was in the DC area for like the post Discord Fallout, like really shitty early 90s hardcore straight edge stuff, which is, super fun, and it was a blast at the time. So I did that for a couple of years as far as like my introduction into like independent music and going to shows. And then I was lucky to get to go to NYU, New York University, dating myself. But yeah, this was like late 90s. I graduated in 2002.
Oh, yeah.
So it was
class of 2003.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was there during like 9/11.
Oh, my God.
And, but at that time, that's where I met Aaron, who had transferred from, I think, a university in Colorado. And he's in Black Dice and Flaccid Mojo. I was actually a TA in one of his classes in film school. I mean, mind you, I just handed out flyers and like
You were at
took
Tisch?
attendance.
Yeah,
this was at Tisch.
Yeah.
Eric was at NYU, but he was at Gallatin, which was kind of like their independent study liberal arts situation, I think. About as useful as a film degree. But to be in New York at that time, like the early 2000s, and at that age, and have, some independence, it was awesome. Super magical, super fun. And I didn't know Animal Collective at the time. When I met Animal Collective was on my first Black Dice tour, and this was when Hisham was still drumming with the band, and they just brought me on as a roadie, just kind of like sell merch and hang out and help loading. And had a great time. Totally sucked at it. Just partied too much. Didn't want to sit behind the merch table. Would leave all the time. I think the first night of that tour, we were in Knoxville, Tennessee, and I got so fucking stoned that like I fell asleep with my eyes open. And like Eric found me in the living room and said it looked like Weekend at Bernie's. Just like, what the fuck is wrong with Danny? So just had a fucking blast. It was killer. I don't even think that we had cell phones at that point. There was definitely an Atlas in the van. And then, just shortly, did that for 1 or 2 years. And then they were like, yeah, you are terrible at selling merch. We know you know how to like make video, and didn't you go to film school? Do you want to make visuals? And that's how I started doing that for Black Dice. And to rewind, on that first tour, they were like, oh, we're gonna meet up with our friends, these guys, Animal Collective. And so that was my first time hanging out with them and meeting them. And then,
but you guys probably only grew up like an hour from each other, right?
Yeah,
from Baltimore to DC.
Exactly.
It's funny you went all the way to New York to meet the Black Dice guys when Animal Collective were right there in your backyard. You guys probably had parallel.
Yeah.
Did you ever do the thing like, did you go to this show? Did you go to that show? Did you?
There wasn't too much crossover. I think those guys were definitely more into like Pavement and the Grateful Dead in those early years, and I was definitely more into just like angry, screamy, hardcore and emo. And then the binding factor is you all start smoking weed and you're like, oh, Can is really cool. Yeah. So I think I entered the Black Dice era when the weed really started flowing in the practice space. And but yeah, I remember that tour was when the 3-1G 7-inch came out, the one with like the big book.
Oh yeah.
And that was just super fun and exciting. But yeah, so and then from there, Animal Collective were like, do you want to do a music video? And I've just been really lucky, and will also just take this as an opportunity to publicly say thank you to those guys. Both those camps of guys are super generous and loyal with like opportunities that they give friends, and gave like me and other people throughout the years when they could have easily been working with like super fancy like big dick like film directors and shit, and they gave us all opportunities that definitely allowed me to continue this facade.
That's incredible. But so when they said you want to make a video, like what was the first video you made, or what were you doing the visuals live before music video, or no? Video stuff first?
I was first doing the music videos. I hadn't started doing the visuals live. I think the first music video I did for Animal Collective was Who Could Win a Rabbit?
Yeah. And
they were on. It was a Fat Cat at the time, and I remember Fat Cat being like, I was 22 maybe, and they're like, yeah, $4,000 for a music video, and I was like, holy shit, oh my god!
Yeah.
And
the biggest budget you've had to work on anything up
totally.
To that point. Yeah,
he's like fresh out of college, and mind you, now in 2024, that would be a lot of money for a music video.
That's the fucked up part, the state of affairs.
Yeah,
$4,000 is still a lot to make a music video.
Yeah. But yeah, it was just it was super fun, and that just began a long kind of practice of mine of just putting all the money into the music videos and working with a team of like costume designers and fabricators that I worked, and then learning the programs that I would I'm still using 20 years later. And So
I watched it this morning because I was doing a little bit of research, and I remember when I first saw that video, when it first came out, it was huge. It was one of those things of like, what is this band? I think it was probably a big sort of like for a lot of people, at least outside of the New York area and the kind of the New York underground. I feel like that was sort of coincided with that record.
I mean that record, Sung Tongs, was pretty powerful, I think, and it still holds up. I give them credit. But yeah, I mean, I remember at the time, hearing that record and hearing all the songs and even playing it for other people that had more conventional taste or just whatever, more normal, for lack of a better word, and even they were turned on by it or could access it. And I remember being like, oh, this isn't like Here Comes the Indian, which is now known as ARC, I guess.
Oh, okay.
They changed the name to that. Anyway, it was definitely a turning point for them as a band. But yeah, super interesting to watch. I have this like role. And mind you, the reason I'm stammering now is because I just hate talking about myself, and I just caught myself sounding like a douchebag. So let me rewind.
No, you're in a safe place.
Yeah,
this is where you're supposed to. I'm asking you the question.
Totally,
you're allowed to talk about yourself.
But that's my 44-year-old DIY rooted in the '90s mentality. Like I don't have. It's hard for me to like pontificate about myself because we're from a background where that was considered cheesy, right? Or like you were kind of a douchebag if you just posted about yourself. We didn't anyway.
Oh yeah, yep.
But
you couldn't sell yourself.
Yeah,
that was what shitheads did.
And that's a weird like generational gap. And I know I'm digressing now, but this is a point worth talking about. Like just as far as our mutual backgrounds, like that is a really weird struggle I have in this day and age and the age of social media. Is like I'm not good at promoting myself. I don't like doing it.
Yeah.
I acknowledge that it's super necessary and part of the current social economy, so to speak. But it's really hard for me.
No, well, I think that the big part of I think. Or not a big part. One of the reasons I do this podcast is at least this is a form I can understand. It's a piece of media. Like I feel like, like if it's a record, I can sell a record. I can't sell me. Like, I mean, it's that kind of feeling of like, I'm not really for sale as a person, or like, my like photos of my children are not for sale in that kind of way. Like I'll post stuff, and that was the whole, I think we're kind of that age of like the rise of social media to then social media commodification to then social media dominance and blacked out all other forms of media. There is no other media. There is no.
Yeah.
So the idea of like, then what from a pocket photo of like your omelet or your toenail or something then became like the cover, the equivalency of the cover of like the New York Times in terms of the visibility and the commodification of it. And you're like, wait a second, this was the thing that I just used to like make dumb jokes with my friends, and now
the magazine analogy is actually super accurate because it used to be that there was that filter of gatekeepers of whether New York Times or Vice or even Vogue, like if you got in it, that means you were vouched for and you were worth it.
Yeah.
Social media comes along and it's basically like, Randy, what if you had a magazine that was literally Randy Unlimited? Every page is a different Randy image. And when you walk around, you're like, dude, check out Randy Unlimited. And people want to read it. Like, people would look at you and be like, yeah, dude's really fucking weird. Like, why is he just reading a magazine about himself?
Yeah.
So why is it that I mean, mind you, some people are, like myself and whatever older people, but why is it not considered weird that people are just walking around literally like, check out my reel, check out my content. And you're like, oh my, it's scary.
But I think in the same breath, the image that hit me when, of having a podcast is I feel a little bit like when Kramer had his own fake talk show. This is basically
where's your Falcon?
Yeah, I'm so delusional that I could just pretend I'm an interviewer. I'm Merv Griffin, and I just can invite friends over. Like, oh, okay, that's fascinating.
What people don't know is that they can't see you right now, but you're actually wearing a beautiful suit and shimmering gator skin shoes, and you definitely look the part right now.
The podcasts in this form are real, and YouTube channels. All this stuff is basically that run rampant. Like, you just pretend. Like, what makes me think I can interview anybody? Like, I don't know, because I have a microphone, and it's fucking. What made them think they were so that great? Like, was Johnny Carson that great?
Well, Johnny Carson probably had a team of writers. That's the thing you don't realize. Like, there's a whole
team of writers,
a whole infrastructure of people behind them. But I mean, on the one hand, as far as like podcasts in this format, I do give people that are able to quote unquote monetize it or be successful with it. It is interesting. Like, it is a new format. It's a new medium. And I, as someone who's, hyper experimental or always likes to move forward, like, that is exciting. But then we go back to the other side of the coin, which is like, yeah, who told you that I want to hear what the fuck you have to say?
No, nobody. Yeah, I think this is the audio form of social media. You know what I mean? The podcast world, which is, again, I feel a little bit more comfortable in for whatever reason. Maybe I'm just a more audio minded person, but just photos. Yeah, I don't know. It was a funny one, but yeah, but having that sort of growing up in, that kind of '90s punk sort of idea, or it was like, yeah, I don't know.
It's challenging.
Like, how do you sell something? I feel like we will always have that. Like,
I mean, people are literally
guilt.
The artists themselves are the brand, and like, I mean, you know about this more than I, but even small labels like Secretly Canadian or an indie label like Sub Pop, they'll make you have a Twitter feed or X, or they'll want you on social media, and they'll want you to be posting shit on your like tour. And like, I've been on tour with bands that don't even travel with a sound guy, but they have a fucking photographer.
What how they're gonna say choreographer? Well, their TikTok thing, yeah, exactly.
But
but I think that's part of it though too. It's like even in the live world of like promoters, like you're expected to promote yourself, and the reason we booked you is because you have 50,000 followers. Mind you, that could be globally. Yeah, and we're gonna play Tulsa tonight, and maybe there's 3. Yeah, fall out of those 50,000 people, maybe 3 of them live in Tulsa. So the trickle downness of it all, or whatever it's supposed to be, like, cool, yeah, let me make this flyer for Tulsa tonight, and then nobody here is going to see it. Like, if only there was somebody that lived in the city who booked at a venue and knew all the people that liked coming to this venue and would like my music, that they could tell all the people that live in Tulsa to come out. Like, what an amazing role that would be if there was a promoter who actually promoted shows in their town.
I mean, yeah, this living by algorithm or by going how many monthly listeners or YouTube hits you have, it's just like, I mean, it is biting us in the ass as far as what's rising to the top. But yeah.
Well, that's a whole other, yeah, right, yeah. I mean,
I definitely resent it.
It's applying some type of meritocracy or some type of thing like, the numbers can't lie, and it's like, yeah, but they're also like, they don't.
I mean, they can.
They don't say what's good.
They can lie. Like, you can literally download an app that plays your song all day.
Yeah. There was that great story a bunch of years back where like the guy like just like bought all the followers on Facebook and then like booked a whole tour based on that. Yeah. And then went out on tour and hired a band and then went out on tour and nobody showed up. And eventually caught up with them and it was just like, well, why is there nobody here at the shows?
Well, we did this show last week. I was telling you with Bjorn and Aaron, I was doing video for them. Flaccid Mojo and Liars were opening up for this Chinese band, Retros, or I believe that's how it's pronounced. And mind you, that's kind of the point of the story. Lovely people, nice band, but I'd never heard of them. They have very minimal online presence, and apparently in Beijing or in China, they're huge. Like, they play like arenas. Wow. So they booked this big North American tour. And just speaking of like disparity, and mind you, I'm not trying to throw shade on the band by any means. You get a tour together, God bless you. Yeah. But it was just a moment of markets didn't line up. They thought, oh, we're huge in China, we're gonna be huge in North America, and it was in this giant, terrible venue downtown. It used to be Club Nokia. Now it's Novo, the Novo. Oh, Lord. You had to go through like various levels of TSA security.
It's just like crypto.com arena. Yeah, exactly. The Staples Center, whatever, the basketball arena.
Totally,
the corporate theater next to
LA Live situation.
Oh, God.
And just super sterile, super corporate. The house people were very nice, to their credit.
It's a good gig for them.
But yeah, the venue was literally like a third full. And it's just like, yeah, this show would have been better at the Fonda or somewhere much smaller or whatever. But it's hard to. There's no rhyme or reason with that stuff, and something just to bring it back to the our friends and people I've worked with. I would say that was something that really keeps and has kept Black Dice nimble and on their feet all these years. Like, even when they had moments of success or whatever, moments of more popularity, no matter where we were. Whether in Europe or North America, before the doors opened, we had no idea if the show was going to be half full, totally full, if it was going to be a rage. I mean, generally in San Francisco and LA, the shows would always be fun, or in the bigger cities, but that feeling of dread in your stomach generally goes away from most bands, and then they get past and okay, yeah, now we're playing whatever, we're good. Yeah. That shit never went away for those guys, and they never let up. They played their heart out every night, put out totally uncompromising sounds, regardless of having to face that feeling. And it's like, yeah, when you're in a fucking club and you see the staff starting to put out cocktail tables in the general admission area, you're like, oh, okay, they didn't sell a lot of tickets tonight, and
we're gonna go ahead and close the balcony down. Yeah. We don't need the balcony up. Oh yeah,
literally. But and I think that's I don't know. That's a very specific feeling of just like never getting too comfortable, I guess is the best way to put it.
But I think, just kind of speaks to that idea too of like monetization or popularity or the metrics of it all. That's like, if you are so minded, and you want to play to the lowest common denominator, or you have this type of like populist art strategy, the tools are there. There's very clear tools in order to do that. You know what I mean? If you need that to kind of work for you. And I think we must sound like insane people to others out there where it's like, if you want to play baseball and like actually hit the ball, you can train and do that. It's like, wasn't that the whole point of this thing? But I think that's where the art versus sport mentality or business, that's the show business versus, being a whacked out artist, is this idea of like, but I want to go, it's like telling, like I want to go make music that isn't necessarily for everybody, for the largest possible audience out there. And it's like, well, that's like saying you want to go play baseball but not hit the ball. Are you trying to not hit the ball?
I want to play baseball in flip-flops.
Or you're like, I had this whole other idea, like what if I just use like a noodle instead of a bat? It's like, but it's in terms of goal orientation, I think, the arts of it all and the creating music in this kind of way, but it's you're following something different. It isn't always about the most money and therefore, but it's hard because then you have this number attached to it. And we've, as a society, have not really given an artist a pass, or had this larger sort of conversation about like, just because an artist has a lot of followers doesn't necessarily mean the art is better. I think it's just as flat as saying that.
I mean, I'm of the mindset, unfortunately, that the wider your audience, the shittier the work, unfortunately. that's maybe speaks to, how, whatever, just outside of the box I prefer to be. But I mean, I give both those bands a lot of credit. It would have been really easy after Beaches and Canyons for Black Dice to be like, we're just going to do the Mogwai, quiet, loud, have Hisham do some tribal drumming, and we'll just have it be epic 11-minute songs. Animal Collective could have made Merryweather Post Pavilion for the next 10 years. Yeah. Those motherfuckers can write the catchiest earworms out there, and their musical lexicon is so vast, but they didn't. Every record just keeps going further and further, and some are better than others, or some, don't get the same amount of attention, but I give those guys a lot of props, and it certainly informed my artistic practice as far as like not just always want to do something different and not resting on my laurels. And if you're comfortable, then that's a good reason to keep moving. And I think in that regard, it's easy to not get ripped off too, because you're like, if anyone rips you off, it doesn't fucking matter because you're already on to the next thing.
Oh, right. In terms of the influence of the
band. I mean, mind you, I would be
the thing.
I would be. We're all lucky enough to have any influence or not be so heavy-handed with the reflections of what we are influenced by. But
sure. Yeah. No, I just got this image when you were saying, Animal Collective kept making the one thing over again. And it's like could turn into this like Jimmy Buffett level of like fandom or something. Like they could have their own like chain of restaurants or whatever that would look like. And there's ways to. But that's a great example of that kind of thing of like, why doesn't everybody just want to become Jimmy Buffett or the Rolling Stones or whatever this thing is of just
a lot of people
so big,
get
too big to fail kind of thing. Feeling of like if you become an institution or a commodity within itself, it's like.
I think I still have, and I try to maintain that. I still have a lot of youthful, just like thumbing my nose at institutions and higher, and even it's like even I just don't like figureheads is the term I'm looking for. Figureheads and gatekeepers, and it's like. Take it all down. Tear it all down. All these motherfuckers have had plenty of time. If I have to see one more documentary about David Bowie or one more video about David Lynch and how surreal it is, I'm just like, dude.
Well, this is a good place to transition too. I mean, because speaking of, as like a filmmaker and as a visual moving artist, that's like a million times worse. The idea of, like the box office game literally exists of like, the most people that see the thing won. Yeah. Like Avengers sold the most amount of tickets, therefore everything will be Avengers for the next 10 years. Until it doesn't, then the next thing, the next biggest thing will go. And that's the only game in town in terms of like film on that level. You know what I mean? Independent cinema and independent, that's we're in a gross, weird place.
It's a really weird place.
With culture as an industry.
With film culture and the industry. And it's I must admit, I never, we're a little older now, firmly middle-aged, and I never thought I would see within my lifetime, like literally the medium of films change. As in young people, your children, I imagine, probably are going to have a harder time watching something like Apocalypse Now 10 years from now and so forth. And just because, I'm talking about the wiring, your attention spans due to social media and such. So that is the way people consume and take content and media in is literally rewind. I mean, I'm not immune to it either. My attention span is way different than it was 10 years ago. But yeah, when I would go around and like pitch stuff to a lot of these like up and coming streamer companies, they would literally tell me like, okay, you have to design stuff with like no dialogue because people are basically going to watch this on mute while they're like taking a shit. Or you're pitching to a horror company. It's like, oh, you need someone to die within the first 5 fucking minutes so that people know they're watching a horror movie.
Wow.
And you need to shoot the monster, literally shoot the monster this way so that we can have the assets for marketing. Like just, just all that, just micromanaging it to holy hell. And, it's very strange, and it's that this is the time that I entered the industry as a director, so I can't necessarily compare it to like, oh, maybe it was different in the 90s or even the early 2000s, but it is definitely rapidly evolving and changing, and it's interesting to watch. It's not necessarily producing fantastic films. I'll say there's we live in this retro culture that I fucking loathe, and it's not just in the form of remakes. It's just like IP filmmaking, like anything that's like considered a safe bet as far as, when I say IP, I mean intellectual property, like books and TV shows. But now they've literally scraped that barrel so bare that they're making content out of like cultural touchstones, like Air Jordans and fucking Peeps, and like it's like, really, there's not enough storytellers or creative people to and it's madness. And that's
if you had to pick an IP, just blue sky, this, all things being equal,
I got an answer. I can
Trash
finish.
Planet. Tell me where you go.
That I would want to make. 2 words: Black Hole. Charles Burns.
Oh,
graphic novel. It's I mean, I'm sure lots of people know this book. It's been in development hell for many years. Many different directors have been attached to it. There's zero chance I'll ever get to make that movie. But yeah, it's an amazing graphic novel. Charles Burns is he's very famous, well-known illustrator and kind of comic artist. And I think he did a cover for Iggy Pop back in the day. And he's done a lot of, I imagine, album covers. But he's amazing, very distinct style. And yeah, it's a book. It takes place, I believe it takes place in the Pacific Northwest, but it's just about a kind of teenage transmitted sexual diseases that kind of turn into mutations. And the whole book just has a lot, just like this layer of melancholy that is just really beautiful, and I always loved and think would translate really well to a movie.
This sounds artistic. I meant like, if there was a product on a supermarket
a
shelf,
product.
Well, an IP, like to the point of like like IP with a capital I, capital P. If there was something we'll put it in a supermarket.
I got you.
What's a supermarket brand?
Do you remember the Ninja Turtle cream pies?
Oh yeah,
in the 90s?
green ones.
Yeah, I'll make a movie about
that. That custard.
Yeah.
That was good custard.
Yeah, those are banging.
So okay. This is even better. This is an IP like sub IP.
I mean, dude, they made a movie out of the hot Cheetos, for fuck's sake.
Right? Oh yeah, no, I'm not saying it's off the table. I'm just saying this is good. What's your elevator pitch on the turtle pie? Is that what they called? What were they called? This would be good.
I mean, if you Google turtle cream pie, chances are you're going to get some pretty gnarly videos.
Yeah, that's not what it's called. Yeah, but this would be great. Yeah,
I mean, if we could find some like down and out immigrant that designs the recipe, that would be a really good.
I see.
Story.
Yeah,
you need to have the human touch.
Right. I see. The story of it's almost like the true story of it. I was thinking more in the turtle world. Could it be like the turtles themselves are like packaging these things? You know what I mean? Could you have maybe you'd have to have cameos?
Style.
Yeah, you'd have to have like the cameos of the actual turtles themselves. Like,
I mean, where does the cream come from?
That's the ooze, right? The secret of the ooze.
But yeah, those were banging. I remember
those were great.
Yeah, skipping my bus.
It's retro. There we go. There's something.
Yeah, but yeah, people love retro and music and film, and in some ways, for all the like leaning or ranting against conservatives and MAGA that people in the liberal world, which I consider myself part of, like to do. I'm like, yeah, but y'all motherfuckers are cheering for all these remakes and all this like retro music. Is that no different than like Make America Great Again? I mean, I know that's a jump and it's like it's the leap. But it's like it's all part of the same disease to me. It's like just being comfortable with shit that like you used to have this affinity for.
Yeah. Well, I think there's that feeling, especially it's
that's
generational.
Why, Randy, I just called you MAGA.
Oh, sure, yeah, great. I forget, make America Gay Again. What did the MAGA say?
Well, in Lincoln Heights in LA, there was a building and it said MAGA, and if you look at it closely, it's the Mexican American Grocers Association.
It's a
And-
MAG I can get behind. Yeah, I
was
think
amazing.
I know nothing about them.
they're probably
Come
pretty
to
cool
find
guys.
out, that's just an
Yeah.
umbrella corporation for some kind of terrible
Yeah.
human trafficking thing. Not that I know
It always
anything.
made me chuckle
Allegedly.
when I
that's
drive
great.
past.
No, I mean it is a tough weird world. I think the idea of really hitting on, futurism is not something that I think anybody can engage in with confidence in the sense of like the climate change sort of doomsday
That's definitely
planet
where-
heating thing. You know what I mean? So
That's
this
where I
idea of like cultural tastemakers having this like look back as in a sense of like warmth and happiness rather than this where I think post World War II you come
Yeah.
into the nuclear age and this kind of like the future will be this and this, and I don't think anybody could with any confidence go the future today of 2024 is going to be great. In 100 years from now all the stuff will be fantastic, and and even the horrorness of it all, the apocalyptic stuff of it just this isn't fun.
No.
There's not even fun with the apocalypse. The apocalyptic ideas used to be fun in the 80s
No,
because you're going to have
certainly.
this like the big dreaded like fallout of nuclear wars and this crazy rise of the machines. Even Terminator's Darkest Thing was still played for like an action adventure setting,
Yeah.
whereas I think the more realistic form of it now is just horribly boring, or not boring. It's horribly real,
Yeah.
and therefore just kind of like drowned in this like real sense of dread that nobody actually really wants to look at. I mean, I feel like if you get a Blumhouse film about a lot of water, it's pretty warm.
Yeah.
It's like, yep. Is there anything else happening? Well, it's pretty hot.
Yeah.
There's a lot of water. That used to be something, and I feel like everybody's just, it's like, what are we not saying or what is not happening? Like, remember there used to be things called polar bears?
I mean, you used to be able to go camping in like late July. Now you can't even do that anymore, as far as you can't have a fire in a lot of parts of the U.S. in that time of the year. And yeah, that stuff definitely freaks me out. And I will say, like, COVID and getting through the Trump years definitely weakened my taste for such fare. As far as like, there's a time in my earlier days, and Eric Copeland and I, we would watch all kinds of Michael Haneke, misanthropic, like just like really dark, cold-hearted movies, and kind of just like chuckle at them. But or enjoy them. But yeah, my taste for such fare, I don't enjoy it anymore. I turned off a movie the other night. I think it was called I Saw the Devil, some Korean kind of serial killer movie, and it was just it was really graphic, really violent. And halfway through, I read about it online. I was like, oh, yep, there's a lot of rape coming up. I don't need to watch this. Yeah, so ever since COVID and everything we've all been through the past couple of years, even as cynical and kind of dark as my humor tends to skew, I'm tend to go more
You
towards
found
Yeah.
the wall.
Yeah,
You feel
even
it.
mind
Yeah.
you, I'm not a hopeful person by any means, but I don't need to feed that beast more than it already is, really.
Yeah. I am very light on all of that stuff. I feel like I take in movies and stuff on such a like immature, kind of adolescent, like I really feel him, I still have
Yeah.
that part of me and I don't want to lose that.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
which is works for good and bad. If there's something that's really gnarly, I'm just like, no, because I'm going to live with
Yeah.
that.
I'm
but if
trying-
it's something really beautiful, romantic, like, yes, because I'm going to live with that. Like I feel very spongy with a lot of media, and I think that if anything, I've just put my boundaries up more as I get older. I'm like, no. And
Yeah.
especially, with like, being a father with kids
Yeah.
and working and everything, it's like, I have about 20 minutes, a day to really take something in,
Yeah. You gotta
and
be
so
serious
it's like,
about it.
I'm pretty selective on stuff. And there's things I'm sure are good, but I'm just like, either it's too big. I don't want to take on, like, have to
Yeah.
take on like a multi-seasonal like show or something. And if I miss the boat, it's like, that's fine. I'm okay with missing the boat. I don't need to be,
Yeah.
I don't need to have caught every wave there was. They're like, what's the best show ever? Like, I know, but I saw the other best show ever. It's fine. I'll get around to the next best show. I'll catch the next one when it happens.
I've unfortunately developed the opposite practice in the past couple of years, where I always have music and a movie playing
Oh, wow.
while I'm editing.
Oh my God.
I'll have a movie playing on mute,
Yeah.
music, and be editing video. My wife will come in and be like, how can you even like focus? And it's like, I've never been officially diagnosed with ADD or anything like that, but I tend to thrive
You
in
like
chaotic
the extra
situations
stuff,
like
yeah.
that. And I think that's why I do well in like shows. Like I like the trainers left the station energy of doing a live performance, and it's like I'm operating the lights, I'm operating the video, and just I like that kind of octopus style of operating. But and then at night when my wife and I watch TV or movies, half the time I'm drawing hunched over a table, and I just look up every 2 minutes to get the visual information, and then I'm just like listening.
Wow.
So I've been trying to actually go back to the theater more, because that forces you to like sit and watch the movie all the way through. And I've been trying to get back. I'm in danger of losing kind of what you were just saying as far as wanting to maintain the joy and just the pure beauty of these experiences. I definitely, my time behind the curtain here in Los Angeles has tainted.
Showed you a lot.
Yeah, it showed me a lot and just tainted my love of movies, and like really affected my ability to take in certain things.
Yeah.
And I was in danger of almost losing that completely in the past couple of years, I must admit. And I'm actively fighting it. I'm actively trying to get it back, because I refuse to be a cliche. Like, I don't want to be one of these people that's just like
Hates everything.
Yeah, and it's just like, dude, you wanted to do this since you were like a little kid.
Yeah.
And I've been very lucky. I've had many opportunities. I've had, flirtations with success here and there, and got to see behind the curtain, so to speak. Been very lucky. But it's still been like super challenging and, demoralizing at times, all the things. I don't want to be that guy that's like, yeah, man, something that literally drove you and gave you so much passion and energy or enjoyment is now because of these guys. And by these guys, I mean just whatever, the world, the industry.
Hollywood writ large.
Yeah, and the machinations of it all.
Yeah, I know, right?
It's hard, but it's...
Yeah, I feel like there's always more to go. You know what I mean? Like as an artist, and that's that it becomes, it's the personal.
Yeah.
When the public, or when the large sort of like expressive external thing, it's just like, well, what do I like? There's still, you can check in with that sort of seed of like, there a spark for what's really happening, and then tune out the, that kind of, but it's maintaining that balance of like being engaging, putting stuff out there, but at the same time having such little regard for the external world of like, all right, I'm going to kind of keep following my bliss here, for better or worse, whether it's welcomed or monetizable or not. It's just like, but this is what I have. This is because you realize, you chase everyone else's, and that's not what you were saying, but just in that kind of regard of like, at the end of the day, no amount of money is going to change you really what you like. You know what I mean? Because any success you got on something that you didn't really love wouldn't really, you know what I mean? There's a certain amount like, oh, hey, that was financially did well, but there's, life's too short.
No, for sure.
You know what I mean? To make bad art, to put out, to play that game. You're just,
there's
too
plenty
old.
of miserable rich people out there with
my gosh,
garbage people in their lives. And, but yeah, I mean, there's something also to be comfortable about getting to this age that we are now, where it's like, yeah, you can't, you know what you like, you know what you don't. And mind you, I'll rewind for a moment. I do not endorse being this kind of person that does not open to change.
Right.
And not open to learning, because that's the spice of life. Sure. I don't want to be one of these people that's like, I know everything, I'm stuck in my ways. Like, that would be pretty boring. But, also when you get to this age, you're like, I can't fake certain things. I know what I am. I know what I'm not. And, I did that movie Odd Sack with Animal Collective, and it had some success. It got me out there and whatever. And then I came to LA with my Odd Sack DVD. And I literally was like, I'm gonna make a movie now. Like you guys, I went to Sundance. I'm with this band at the New York Times. Come on, like I'm a guy, right? Yeah. Hell no.
It's a platform. But I'm sure you got meetings.
I got meetings.
I'm sure you sat with a lot of people in bad suits and bad offices.
I had a lot of meetings, but zero offers. So then I went back to
Did you get a lot of bottles of water?
Oh yeah, a lot of bottles of water. Dean's wife gave me a bottle of water at Directors Bureau once.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah.
But so then I went back to drawing board, and I was like, all right, this movie's too experimental. Let me try to make a movie. This is a long digression. I'm gonna bring it back to what we were just speaking of. So then I was lucky enough to make Anti-Birth, which is, for lack of a better word, a more conventional movie. Still very out there, still very weird, experimental, quote unquote. And then after I do Anti-Birth, it still has a little bit of success. It gets distribution, but it certainly doesn't bump me up to this next level where I'm getting to make the next Batman or whatever the fuck. And basically after Anti-Birth, I spent a good 3-4 years writing in the same fashion. Odd Sack was very experimental. Anti-Birth, okay, let me soften the edges a little bit and try to do something a little more conventional. Then I really tried to soften the edges. I really tried to write a thriller and I tried to write something really more conventional.
You get a teen romance?
No, but I
gotcha.
got offered like weird, dumb things. I got offered once this like black metal horror movie where it's literally like kids go to a festival and all of a sudden they see someone die on stage and the singer's like, "Get them!"
Oh,
Yeah, it was terrible. I mean, I
Yeah,
didn't do it.
yeah,
I
yeah,
literally
yeah.
told the producer, I was like, if I make this movie, all my friends are gonna make fun of me for the rest of my life. So fuck you. Anyway, so I get offered all kinds of stuff. I was attached to some
did
big
that movie get made? The Black Metal
No,
Murder?
of course
Okay,
not.
Okay, yeah.
I got attached to some other script that was, in development hell for, getting developed for like a year and never went anywhere. And at the end of this 3 or 4 years, I hadn't made another movie. I hadn't made anything, but I learned something, which was, yeah, dude, you can't fake it. You're not that guy. Like, you're not that filmmaker. Like, and I have this analogy where I'm just like, the world, as far as creative industries, music, film, whatever, it's a marketplace.
Mm-hmm.
And Taylor Swift's table, that's on the top floor on the mezzanine by the pool and has a big old line, tons of people. The LCD sound system, that's not too far from there. They got a big old table. They got a lot of motherfuckers there. My table, it's in the basement by the bathroom. You have to go past the service entrance and, go to the loading dock. And there's going to be 5 people there. But they're the coolest fucking people. And that's the weirdest shit you're ever going to see. And that's kind of like where I'm at now. I'm just like, yeah, the world's a marketplace. And what I have to sell, my ware on the table is, it's pretty limited audience and market. And I've tried to fight it. I've tried to sculpt it here and there. But just can't deny the fire that comes from doing what you actually want to do,
Yeah, it's a funny one too, because I think it also, I think we, just us based on our age and so where we came from post 90s independent cinema. I think that was really, the last time that rags to riches story sort of played out in that fashion.
Yeah.
Or even going back further to like the Coen brothers and like, like I was thinking just as you're talking, like Joe Dante was like,
Love Joe Dante.
Joe Dante's great. Sam Raimi. On that level too, like early kind of underground. It's American, International Pictures. What is the guy? Roger Corman sort of had. There was a couple of people from the Corman School that got big, and there's, but I feel like at their essence, these are really populist, really straight ahead, Joseph Campbell myth storytellers. These are very constructed storytellers. They're not really experimental filmmakers. Like Sam Raimi was a very straight ahead filmmaker, but on a shoestring budget.
Yeah.
But he was making the first Evil Dead is really good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's a good film. It's made for no money. And the second Evil Dead is the same one, but funnier.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But so he's just flexing, but he's a genre filmmaker.
Yeah.
And so with more money, you can give those guys more money and they can make bigger genre films.
There's a super cut of I think Ted Raimi is Sam Raimi's
his brother?
brother, who he gives like cameos in all his movies, and there's a lot of appearances that do not age well, as far as him being like a Chinese person or a Hispanic person, and he's already a very distinct looking guy. So then they put these costumes on him, and it's pretty funny.
But you know what I'm saying? Where there was like it was like. You're not a, you know what I mean? You're an experimental artist. You got your start from music video world and then into live film world. It was never, you don't have the Harry Potter, like Golden Child story that you don't have 10 different ways to tell that story inside of you.
I mean,
and therefore there's really no place at this larger, marketed level.
Yeah.
It's sort of what the world is telling us.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because when you look at what these films are that do these big numbers and all these things, it's really the same story. Like and you're rewarded for retelling the same story, and repackaging the same story.
That is kind of why
you can warm over the dog shit.
I roll my eyes and get annoyed a lot when they'll take these independent filmmakers or a Sundance filmmaker that's a person of color or a woman or a queer artist, and they're like, oh, we're investing in new voices and new stories. We're going to let them make this Marvel movie.
The same story, yeah.
And it's like, no, you guys aren't interested in new voices or new stories. And mind you, God bless those people that take those jobs, because I would too. It's a wonderful paycheck.
Yeah.
But don't tell me you're interested in new voices. You're interested in new packaging, so you can pat yourself on the back and be like, look, we're hiring these people, but like you're still making the same just mediocre films that also are like swallowing the budgets of what
blotting out the sun of any other
of what for middle class films, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
And so I do roll my eyes a little bit at that kind of trajectory of.
I think a lot of those types of films too, like the Marvel films, they're already made.
Yeah,
you know
yeah.
what I mean?
Oh,
Like
yeah.
all
They're
of
automated, basically.
the like all the fight scenes are pre-visualized, all the effects are pre-visualized. You know, the director is there to kind of pick the stuff that happen, the cut scenes in between the video games.
Yeah,
you know what I
but
mean?
make
Like,
no mistake, that filmmaker isn't doing the fight choreography. They're not working with the post department on the effects. They have
costume designs.
Yeah,
It's,
yeah.
you know, that's consumer products.
Yeah, yeah.
It's the design of all the costumes, of all the things. Those have already been set by department heads.
Although,
a
to
long
be
time ago.
fair, just to not be a negative Nancy and such a cynic, in the world of superhero films, I'm friends with, or my friend's sister is a production designer on a lot of those movies. And she designed what I would argue is one of the best villains in a movie. The movie's pretty dumb or bad, but the villain, it was a Suicide Squad movie.
Oh, I love it.
And the big starfish.
I loved it. Yeah, Starro.
Amazing.
Beautiful.
So rad.
That was a great film.
Yeah.
And again, another guy who comes from Troma.
Yeah, James
You know what I
Gunn.
mean?
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, again, but his, you know, sort of voice carries through. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? He was always kind of this.
Did you
big
see
goof-
Slither, the film he made?
Long time ago.
Yeah, that's great. It's good.
Yeah,
Really
but you
good,
could- yeah.
good combination of like practical effects and CG in that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, just speaking what you're saying too about like the '90s being like the last era of like a Paul Thomas Anderson or a Wes Anderson kind of coming out and being like, no, I'm a quote unquote an auteur and I make my own films and scripts. And there's still some people like pop out. I feel like now like Robert Eggers and like the Daniels, those guys that did that movie you know, they're certainly super strong filmmakers that are, you know, carving their own path, but it does seem like less and less possible for a filmmaker, specifically films, to break out or like be terribly original. And if it's an original concept or a non-IP script, like forget sci-fi. Like you're not gonna get. I mean, I think like that movie The Creator that came out last year looked wonderful, amazing effects, beautiful production design. Dumb
Gareth
fucking
Edwards?
story. Yeah, dumb fucking story. Like it's just like a man and a little girl and like pew pew. Oh, how do we get to the escape hatch? Oh, more people. Pew pew. Okay, here's another escape hatch. Like it's super boring, but it looked amazing and it was great. But it's like but every time that happens, like an original sci-fi script comes out and it doesn't do well, they just gives these producers more ability to be like, see, no, and it has to be based on a video game.
Yeah.
Or something that people know automatically like they're gonna get into.
I think there's definitely a sense too of just reorganizing deck chairs on the Titanic. You know what I mean? Because there's a lot of this sort of stuff. Like it's just like we've talked about. You know, like the social media is whatever form and whatever mutation in the evolution of what these types of like places are. That's what's really happening. You know, the idea.
Trim the fat. I'm all for it. Like there's
yeah.
too many people out there doing like useless jobs and just taking a paycheck, and it's. Yeah, whether it's.
I mean, I could see you just having, you know, your YouTube channel just being all, you know, it's all self-funded. It's all just on the shoestring, nothing, and you just do that, and you do one video a month.
I mean, people
and it's
monetize
done.
that, and they
You know what I
make
mean?
a
And,
living
like,
off of that.
You could at least have a channel, an outlet or something, even if you were just to give yourself the 12 5-minute stories in a year kind of idea. If you were looking for, I'm not that you need advice or anything, but I'm just.
I'll take all the advice I can get. I'm a lone
experience
wolf
in
at
this
this
world.
point.
You know what I mean? But I could see, you know, like 12 5-minute shorts.
Yeah.
That just all just live out there. And it's not about one of them. It's about the series of the whole thing.
Yeah.
And you just build and you grind on those kinds of ideas. And again, who gives a fuck? Whatever it is, you don't like this one, go to the next one, go to this one, go to that one. And you know what I mean? And I don't know.
I mean, the reality is like you're not going to make money on an independent film now anyway.
That's the fun part of it all,
like,
too.
If you're lucky enough to get a distribution deal with Netflix or with Hulu or one of the streamers, like you're not going to make your money back. So
there's.
But yet we still, myself included, mind you, we still pretend that that's like the the thing that we need to strive for.
I think in the stratification of all of the arts and all of the stuff where the business really just exists at the top 1%, and everyone else is shit. That, you know, it just continues to grow that way. But there's the nihilism and the freedom that sets into that is like, then it'll never. And I think I've learned this just through talking to people and doing this podcast. Is I think there was a certain amount of like things used to be this, now they're this, and I'm constantly like old man shaking his fist at cloud kind of thing in here. But I think as I've done this longer and longer, I'm processing this sort of idea of like it's all just for fun. The money was never the point of doing it anyway. Whether it was the music, all of the stuff, it was getting in the van with your dumb friends, and again. It's a lot more exciting on the front end of your life in your 20s to have that kind of thing. Like the not that it's not possible to still do that in your old age, but there's become other priorities. Because your life becomes,
You
becomes
get
different in
older,
those
you
kind
get
of
health
ways.
issues, you get kids, you get a house.
All of those things make make that naivete just unattainable.
Yeah.
To kind of pull from it. But however, that being said, just making weird shit to make weird shit. Like, you know what I mean? I love these bigger like artist retrospectives.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where it's like, this guy made all this weird art for 70 years in his garage. Now he's dead. And we're going to celebrate him. You know what I mean? If nothing else, like, well, shit, it's better than nothing, I suppose. Somebody found something. Like,
I got a big pile of dead man's art waiting for the world.
There's something, if that's an avenue, you know what I mean? As you go, it's like, oh fuck, I'm just gonna keep making my stuff. Like, I don't need much to exist on this thing, and
I mean, there's definitely something to be said for, again, just kind of going back to being older. It's like, what do you do when no one's looking?
Right. Oh yeah.
Like when Pitchfork isn't writing about you anymore, when your shows are smaller,
when Pitchfork doesn't exist anymore, you mean?
Yeah. When the meetings you're not getting anywhere. Like, do you still make work? Do you still jam? Do you still draw? Do you still make a film, even though no one's going to watch it? And that's a hard hurdle to get over, and one I've had to face recently myself, and proud to say that I've continued making work, and because it's just to kind of what you're speaking to, because it's fun. That's the process. It's the work, and
it's breathing. You know what I mean? That was the thing during the pandemic when everything was shut down. I think that was a good kind of check in for a lot of people. That kind of thing. It was like, I still played guitar every day because it was so fun, or I tried to at least. I'd sit out here, and again, I wasn't recording, I wasn't playing a show, I wasn't streaming it, I wasn't, it was just like, I just still need to do. I realized, there was a nice Venn diagram moment where the thing I did every day, people would pay me to do. And then like much like the solar eclipse, or the celestial, they move. They're like, okay, there was a time when those were arranged. We're like, hey, we love the way you walk. You're gonna be a professional walker. But I'm just walking. It's not that I don't try hard, but I've worked my whole life to do it this way, and I just do it this way. And cool, we love it. And then we're not gonna do that anymore. I'm like, okay, well, I still have to walk. I'm not gonna stop walking. I'm not gonna stop breathing.
Yeah. No, I mean, I feel I'll get not shade, just people that I'm friends with now that have kids or don't go to shows. Like, you still go to shows? I'm like, I love music, and I like seeing talented people perform and do stuff that they're good at. Like, even if I don't like the music, I can still geek out on the drummer or the bassist and be like, it's cool to see someone fulfilling something that they're good at. But
I wish I went to more shows.
I try to go pretty regularly, because I do tell myself, because I live closer in the city, and I was like, if I'm gonna go through all the crap that it takes to live in the city, I want to take advantage of it.
Get the good stuff out.